my keepers of chaos, as well as all of you Tier Talk fans out there. Russ Hamilton here. So anyway, I thought I would do a little bit of training, but I thought I would, use a few really like graphic stories to kind of draw you in and illustrate what I'm talking about with regards to one of my very favorite things in corrections, which is OC pepper spray, right? So anyway, OC pepper spray is a great tool. When my department first adopted it, it really caused a lot less violence. Maybe a lot less isn't quite right, but it put kind of a kibosh on some of the violence out there. And it also put staff in a better position where they had to use way less physical force, and they were able to, end up not getting hurt, as well as, saving some inmates from getting hurt. And so it's a great, great tool. So I wanted to regale you. I've got 4 stories to kind of go on here, and intersprinkled throughout, I'm going to talk about some of the great things that pepper spray does for us. So getting right into the meat of things here, pepper spray, if you guys have it, it's great. But you know what? I've seen some institutions, like they want to give you the little MK3 or MK4, all that stuff. That's baloney, right? You want a great big fire extinguisher sized MK9. You know what I mean? And if you can, more than one, because you never know how many people you're going to have to go out there and marinate with this stuff, right? I've sprayed like 10 or 15 guys with a single can before, on not just one occasions, but probably, I don't know, too many to count right now. So anyway, if you can possibly get the MK9, it's really so much better. It gives you a lot more volume. It gives you a lot more reach. And, it has just a better chance of really getting in there and stopping whatever you're after. So I picked the stories that I'm going to share are what I was originally going to call like my top 4 exposure stories. But I would say that exposure happens in all of them, but it's not necessarily the main feature of them. But there's just a lot of different things that I think that you're going to learn from this. And I'm just going to try and, remember all the things I want to talk to you about with regards to the use of it and some of the cautions or precautions that you have to take when you're using this stuff. But it's fantastic. I mean, if you haven't sprayed someone yet, and I've sprayed, I can't even begin to tell you. I've got caught in the crossfire and been exposed so many times, I forgot long ago how many times that is or how many people that I've sprayed over the years. So let's delve right into this first story. I think you're really going to like it. This one was probably my most massive exposure of all time to it. So some of you are probably thinking, oh yeah, that was probably in the academy, or no, not the academy. That was probably in his initial training. No, it wasn't a training scenario at all. It wasn't even any kind of a scenario at all, right? So anyway, what basically happened was we had this trailer on our yard, and it was the office for some counselors. It was the officer for the lieutenant. And we had a couple of inmate clerks in there and that kind of thing going on, right? So I walk in there one day and I go into the bathroom, do whatever it is when you go into the bathroom, right? And as I'm getting ready to wash my hands and I've got everything else going on, I turned, and to this day, I don't know exactly what happened, but I had that MK9 on my left side, okay? And that MK9, something happened to it and it exploded. And not only did it explode, but it also ricocheted off of the ceiling, striking me in the head. And I mean, I was literally covered in this stuff, right? And it was horrible. I mean, I had every bit of what was in that MK9 pretty much on me. That caused a reaction inside the trailer. And that particular reaction was that I got completely left alone. The inmate clerks, they skedaddled for greener pastures. All of the counselors in there, they left. Whoever else was left, they were gone too. And I was pretty much blinded and, pretty much, feeling like I was coughing up my lungs and stuff like that. I couldn't see. The only thing that I could do is I did manage to control my breathing, which is really essential when you're using this stuff, right? You got to take, as shallow breath as possible. But if you're not expecting it, you can't always do that. But in my case, I was able to actually like squeak out a radio thing. Oh, and by the way, I am going to use, people's not real names in this because some of them figure into it greatly. So anyway, I'm calling the only person I can think about that's going to help me out of this mess, a guy that claimed that OC pepper spray didn't bother him. So I'm trying to get Officer Streusel on the radio, right? And he finally comes back up and I tell him, hey, you know what? Come down here, come immediately. And I didn't really want to fill in everything that was going on because it could be a little bit embarrassing, though. I really, don't think it was anything specific or big that I did on my part. But anyway, he comes in there. And you know what? Strangely enough, he didn't have that much reaction to it, but he did manage to, get me, to the bathroom, and I was able to clean up. And, the important part though was when I was trying to figure out where everybody was in there, because like I said, they had all skedaddled, is, I didn't want to go bumping into things and stuff. So here's what you can do too, is you get exposed to this stuff, it's going to slam your eyes shut. There's nothing you can really do about that unless you really need to get out of a place, and you can go in there and you can peel an eyeball open and back and be able to actually look at it, and it's going to have a really blurred view. But I was able to get out there to one of the windows and see that I had just been left there. Anyway, that kind of pretty much sums up this. But that's a tip that you can take away. You can peel your eyes open. You can get to safety. In this case, I was already safe, but I did wonder why everyone had just left me there. All right. So we will go now to the next particular story. All right. So the next story that I've got for you involves me and one of my lieutenants. So this is all about Lieutenant Andy and myself. So anyway, Lieutenant Andy gets himself either suckered or volunteered or something into doing an overtime. And I had volunteered for an overtime. And so it was one of those things that, I came trucking in there. Hey, Lieutenant Andy, how are you doing? And he's like, and I can just see it on his face. And I'm like, well, what? And he's just like, look, I really could use not having an incident tonight. And so I guess, well, what can I say? I'm not a person to start forest fires, but I do find them and I do tend to stamp them out. And I tended to be really active in the things that I was doing. And so, I was just like, hey, come on, Andy, that's not how it works. What happens with a lot of these, and he already knew this, is things just fall in my lap. I happen to be there and stuff happens. Stuff occurs. Some people call that being a shit magnet. I don't know. But anyway, I was just like, hey, take it easy, man. Nothing's going to happen tonight. I don't think anything's going to happen tonight. It's all cool. And so, he was a great lieutenant, actually, and stuff. But I think he was just, flustered with that night because he had a lot of other things on his mind. So he was cool with it. I was cool with it. And then we are, getting down to where we're several hours into the shift. And I get a call from Receiving and Release. And anyway, they say, hey, man, we got this inmate back here. We're not sure about this guy and what might happen. So anyway, I went trucking back there and I called them on the radio, and I'm back there and I'm interviewing this inmate. And the inmate is telling me, oh, yeah, I can live on this yard. It's not a problem, yada, 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 and whatever. And so anyway, after I've, about wrapped up this interview and stuff, I get a call on the telephone. It's Lieutenant Andy, right? And he just says, well, because he knows about my history. He knows about my batting average with guessing whether or not certain inmates are going to be a problem on the yard, which was 100% at that time. And I said, yeah, he says he can live on the yard and he says it's not a problem. He repeats himself. Well, I go, Yeah, he's going to take off as soon as we place him in whatever, housing area we're going to do. He's going to take off. He's going to be doing some kind of, violence or something. And you can just hear the resignation in his voice, right? He's just like, can we still keep it from being an incident? Yeah, that's not a problem. I'll just, make sure whatever else happens that it won't be an incident. Now, by incident, that means that, hey, we're not going to have a use of force, on our side, that inmates, they might do what they do, that we're not going to have, a bad injury that we have to report, that kind of thing. So anyway, I take this guy and I escort him up, and we're going to go into his housing unit, And so, I'm just like, well, we're going to see what's going to happen. I figure he'll probably take off on some guy, and, I'll probably yell at him to get down. They would probably freak out a little bit, maybe I'll point my pepper spray at him and threaten him a little bit. And so anyway, I put him into the housing area, and the instant he gets inside that door, he drops his bags, he runs to the nearest inmate and just starts wailing on him, right? Well, he wails on this guy and then another guy, and he's moving further and further away from me. And so anyway, I draw my pepper spray and I'm like, get down, get down. He turns around and sees me and comes straight for me. I mean, speed demon on wheels. And so I'm like, I have no choice now. I mean, my choices are limited, right? I can hit him with my baton. I can hit him with my fist, or I can spray him with that pepper spray. Either way, now all of a sudden it's reportable. So I got, okay, I'm going to do the spray. So I hit him with, a little burst of the spray. Not that any amount really matters for our kind of reporting. And it was like magic. It looked like I had clotheslined this dude. The feet came up in the air. He hit on his back, hit on his head. I don't know what was going on with him, but, pepper spray always has a great effect, but not like that. So anyway, and we're going to circle back to this whole thing here about me and Lieutenant Andy and things falling into my lap. It's important you remember this for the very last story I'm going to tell. All right. So anyway, pretty much, Lieutenant Andy shows up. Needless to say, he's kind of, not very happy with me at that moment, but I tell him, and he understood. I was like, dude, he rushed me. I really didn't have any choice. I didn't think it was going to go down like this. If I'd known it was going to go down like this, there's still nothing that I could do. And anyway, that pretty much ends that tale. But know this, and this is the little takeaway from this one, is that, pepper spray, it's that great tool. Could I have gone hands-on with this guy? Sure. Right. What would have happened? I might have been the victor. I might have been the loser. I did have backup immediately with me, so I wasn't that concerned with the detail. But the problem is that when you tend to end up in scuffles and in tussles and stuff, you do tend to get hurt, and things just happen, a twisted neck, a couple of scratches here and there. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do about those things happen. At best, those little injuries are inconvenient. At worst, they could be career ending or life threatening. We want to avoid that. That's the premise behind pepper spray, is being able to, mitigate those things that are dangerous to us. And that's why I'm such a huge proponent of it. It works better in its way because you can douse so many individuals at one time, than say a taser. Because like a taser, you're locked up with one particular, individual, and that's fine if that's the way that one goes. So many times though, and in most incidents that I've been involved in, they get big and they involve masses of inmates, or 2 inmates, 3 inmates, 4, more than you can deal with it. Okay. So now for story 3, right? This is another one that I would class as giving me a high degree of exposure. But kind of the thing that you're going to take away from this, well, I'll save that for the end of it, because I think you'll figure it out, right? Okay. So here it is. I get a call on the radio, and I got 2 inmates fighting. And they're fighting at the top of this stairwell of where this building kind of wrapped around the yard. So anyway, I go responding to it and get to the top of the steps, and there's already a couple of officers there. They've already deployed some pepper spray, and yeah, it's very peppery. You know, that little peppery taste in the air. It's kind of a dead giveaway and everything. And so anyway, I start yelling at this one inmate because he's kind of already moving away from me. And, you know, he's taken some of these verbal cues pretty well. So I move further down because I want him, you know, down the end of this is just like a little sidewalk, essentially, that was elevated into the air there. And so he's following along with that. But the other guy is really concerning to me because he doesn't seem to be doing anything that anyone's telling him. And more than that, as I pulled out my pepper spray and told him to get down, he started verbally challenging me, you know, F you, I'm not going to get down. Come here, make me, blah, blah, blah. So I decided to go ahead and give him his wish with regard to that pepper spray. I figured he was asking for it. So I just fired off and I hit him full force in the face. And I mean, he looks like an Oompa Loompa. So and it's dripping down and his face is as orange as he can be. And he just blinks a couple times and then he's just looking right at me. This is one of the few times where I've really had pepper spray fail me. And I was just, oh my gosh, this guy is either on something or, you know, he's a mental case or something, because he's not choking, he's not gagging, he's not doing any of those things that tend to happen when this stuff, you know, it inflames everything and the mucuses start running. That's what we used to say, is the mucuses start running. But I always used to say, who is that? It's a guy I know. He used to say that OC is the key for your snot locker. Anyway, this guy wasn't draining out or anything like that. And he's just blinking and looking at me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, the other guy had gone far enough away down and was, you know, laying down and looking up at us. But he was suffering the effects pretty good, even though I don't think he got hit all that hard. And I do see one officer starting to creep up on the other side of the stairs there. So that's good. And then as I start to step up onto where the concrete is, I realize that we have deluged this little area of concrete with so much pepper spray that it's slick. It's slippery. This is not good. I can't get my footing. So I put the pepper spray away. This is not helping, obviously. Go to plan B. Plan B is my Monadnock expandable baton. So I grab that out, boom, whip that out, tell the guy, get down, get down. He says he's not getting down. He's calling me all kinds of bags of MFers and stuff. So I realized, man, I don't even want to get into this with him, you know, and this baton thing, because it's slippery. And anyway, as he starts to turn, I don't want him looking back at the officer or anything. So I just grab my baton and I strike him as forcefully as I can against his chest. And that really informs me at that time that, hey, it is really slippery because I got pushed back a little bit. So anyway, that kind of caught his attention. And I was going to go for another strike, but then the other officer is just arriving right there and started to grab him from the back. And the instant he started to turn back toward the officer, boom, I was in there. And then it gets way worse, right? Because now we go down, I mean, just like a herd of turtles, and we're slipping around and stuff. It's like hot oil wrestling, but with pepper spray. So anyway, now I'm worried because he's like making grabs and stuff at his belt line and stuff. I don't know what he's got. I haven't searched him yet. And then he starts tucking up, but he's getting a little bit easier to handle just from the perspective he's not as active as he was. So I take my baton and I reach it. I thread it right through his elbow and I just use it like a fulcrum. Boom. And it worked beautifully. Now I've got his hand behind his back. Give me the other one. He's still refusing, right? The officer was able to peel that hand back and we were able to get him in the bracelets. All right. Beautiful. All right. So what do you take away from this? Well, you know, one of the things that we always take into account is the air. Where is it moving to? You got to be careful when you're using it, especially if you're outside, because those air currents will carry it across. I can't begin to tell you how many times I got blasted with crossfire during my career. But the thing in this situation is there was also that thing about the cement. I really hadn't been in a situation before where it made things slippery like that because of the amount that we just used. So that's an important consideration. It's something that I would remember again. The last thing to take away is yeah, I used my baton like that. And someone's like, hey, were you taught that? I go, not by the department. I wasn't. So anyway, someone had a problem with that, but it was meaningless in the end. But those are a couple of other things that you can take away with regards to using pepper spray. All right. So here we are. I've done those stories right. I'm getting back to the fourth and final one. Now remember, I said I was going to circle back from telling you something with the story of Lieutenant Andy, right? And about how things just kind of tend to follow me, tend to just drop into my lap, whatever. So the little town that I live in, from time to time will have a snowstorm or two. Well, this was one of the bigger ones on record, actually. And I just happened to be pulling up onto this one road, and there were vehicles just off the road everywhere. And I pulled in, and there's just a truck blocking the road, just sitting there, right? And this guy gets out of that vehicle. It was a Toyota 4-wheel drive, so I didn't think he should have any problems with regards to, navigating whatever he was looking at or whatever. But there was this car off to the right that it looks like it kind of like slid down into this little parking lot that was off to the side, right? And this guy's outside the car, and he's doing this. I'm like, what's going on? And the other guy starts yelling at him. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? All of a sudden, the guy from the truck runs down this little hill, this little embankment, and pulls out, like a fire extinguisher looking thing full of pepper spray, and is just blasting this guy, right? And so this guy, he just takes it full in the face. He's dripping and everything. And then the guy throws down the big thing full of pepper spray and just starts going to town on this guy, man. Just right, left. I'm like, holy shit, man. I don't know that I want to be involved in this. But you know what? Sometimes you got no choice. So I figured this is one of those times where once again, out in the public and stuff, I have no choice. I've been in these things a bunch of times, and I think it's scary every time because you never know who's got a gun or a knife or whatever. But I jump out and I go up there and I'm dialing the sheriff's office, and I'm like, hey, this guy pepper sprayed another one. What do you mean pepper sprayed? I can't go into that right now. I just want you guys to get here. So I say, he pepper sprayed him, and now he's giving him a pretty good tune-up. So anyway, the guy, by now, he can't defend himself. The pepper spray, he can't breathe, he can't see, and he's, trying to just cover up and hold his arms, but they're kind of like down in the snow, and dude's just pummeling him. And I'm just like, oh crap, man. My only shot now is that I want to sneak in there and I'm just going to choke this guy out real quick. I don't want to do that though. It could be a knife. It could be a gun in there or something. And all of a sudden he pauses. And I'm like, oh, cool. So now I reach down, I just grab his shoulder, pull him back a little bit, still in a position where I can choke that guy out if I need to. And then he kind of like stops, right? And I tell the other guy, hey, go back down there by your girlfriend. And his girlfriend, oh my God, she is hysterical, right? She's screaming and crying and blubbering and stuff. They go back down there. I said, the cops are on their way. So dude stands up and he's like, I don't know and about the time he gets that first F word out, I struck him in the chest with both of my fists at the same time and knocked him back down. So that was good. I had that on my side, had it going at that time. But now I'm feeling a little bit of the effects, but my eyes aren't slammed shut or anything. And I'm like, no, dude, you're going to stay right here. And I thought at this point that we were going to fight, because that's usually what happens. You tell someone, they plex up, you hit them first, and then you tell them again, and then usually the fight is on. Well, all of a sudden, this guy's just crazy, I guess. He goes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And he just takes like this posture with his head down and he's staring at the ground. And I said, you're just going to stand right there, right? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm like, wow, I don't know, man. Maybe I hit him harder than I thought I did. But anyway, a couple minutes goes by. The SO shows up. And they're like, what the hell? And I'm like, all I can tell you is that he sprayed that guy with pepper spray, big white bottle listed bear spray on it, right? And then he started rocking and socking him. And then the guy's like, well, you don't understand. Understand what? He goes, he threw snow at my car and it's my birthday. So now I realize that we are in crazy town, right? I said, yeah, but you didn't need to, hit him. You didn't need to pepper spray him. So this guy, he's just a loon. And then the SO's like, hey, we dealt with this guy before. He ain't right. And then, so they call the guy that got pepper sprayed up here and they say, hey, you going to press charges? It is a felony. And the guy's like, oh, I don't want to press charges, but man, he ruined my jacket. And then he's still coughing and all this stuff. And he goes, I just spent $140 on it. No lie, right? Is the guy looks at the cop, our actor, the one who uses pepper spray, and says, can I get my wallet? And the cop's like, Bill's okay, yeah. And he pulls out his wallet, peels off $140, hands it to the sheriff's deputy. The sheriff's deputy hands it to the victim and then says, are we done here? Anyway, it was crazy town, folks. So, anyway, kind of the points of that story is less to do with the pepper spray than just if you're out and about. Be careful about where you are. Be mindful of what you're doing. Always have a plan. Sometimes you're going to get thrust into things. If you can possibly avoid them, avoid them. Let people with radios and guns and who know each other and are there in uniform, because it's really handy when you got a uniform on, because then you're automatically the good guy, right? If you're there and they roll up and you're doing something that looks a little nefarious and they haven't had time to ask you, it can be all bad. Just saying, I've been there. I've done that myself. Okay. Last thing. All right. This is the last thing about pepper spray. All right. It is a great tool. It is a great deterrent and all that. The thing to keep in mind, you use this stuff and then you put a guy in bracelets, especially if you put him in bracelets, you got to be mindful of the fact that he has to be sitting upright. All right. Or at the very least laying on his back, but he can't be on his front, because what happens is then, especially if you guys has some drugs or something in his system, you get that excited delirium. And, he can go from fighting you to gray and dead in a couple of minutes if you're not careful. So it's not important while you're actually fighting him. When you're fighting him, get him braceleted up, get those bracelets on. But once that's over, it's over. All right. Then you have to, turn him over, bring him up. It's a great tool, right? So anyway, I hope some people got some tips out of that. I hope that you take those little lessons to heart. If you have any questions, ask them. It's easier if you ask them on the YouTube side, because I don't know, I'm going to probably dole this out to 15 or 20 different Facebook sites, but we'll just see what happens. Anyway, my name is Russ Hamilton. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, stay frosty, stay aware. Don't let complacency bite you in the ass, people.